Started. My name is Chris Kimball. I am one of the partners of Legacy Tours. Jill Clifford is one of my other partners. Her and her husband, Mark, are the founders of Legacy Tours and Travel. Go ahead and talk a little bit about the Paul portion, because this is really the overview of this whole tour is Apostle Paul. It is about him. And what we're doing is now going and visiting the sites where he went. And Turkey is actually opens up the door for more of that to take place than what we were doing before in just Greece. So, McKay, what are your thoughts on this overview?
No, I was really excited by the changes, to be honest with you, because one, most people don't realize that Paul basically was born and raised in Turkey, because Tarsus was on the coast of Turkey at the time. And so his upbringing, which is very important if you're trying to understand the Apostle Paul, was someone who understood not only the people that were living there, they weren't necessarily called Turkish, obviously, but the people that were tent makers and rope makers and the things that came from his family. Remember, also he was a Roman, so he understood the Roman influence there, and he relied on being a citizen of Rome throughout his entire life, including when he was imprisoned. And that they couldn't really kill him because he had to be sent back to Rome to be judged. And so if we start in Turkey and understand that mindset, which I think doing this new itinerary really gets us to do. Plus we get to see an unusual place. I've always wanted to see Istanbul. I mean, it's just, it's almost as fascinating as Athens to me in some ways. Athens is more traditional, what we, the Acropolis and stuff like that. So we know a little bit what we're looking at, but inside of Istanbul, it's going to be like a new, especially with your different senses, sight, smell, everything is going to jump out at you. And then, as I said, following Paul on these really three great journeys of his, three mission journeys, is going to be fascinating, because we're going to places that really meant something to him. And one place in which he's absolutely called to. He's called to the Greeks. As we know in the book of Acts, he has a vision, a Macedonian, who basically says, come and teach us. And that doesn't happen too often, in life. I did have a few old Maoris on my mission in New Zealand who would tell me they had visions like that. It always kind of scared me, but they were generally kind of true. But when we look at this, he did have a mission to Greece, and it was really important. And so he went to fiery places. I mean, you get a sense of Paul and how brave he was by some of the places he went. I mean, to go to Corinth, this extremely, rich city, and to go to Ephesus, and to go to places where, and then go to Athens and stand on Mars Hill and, talk about Epicureans and Stoics. He's just so brave. You walk away. I think we're going to walk away from this tour and this traveling with two huge appreciation aspects of Paul. One, that he was called, and it was a very unusual calling. He wasn't the original 12 apostles. He was called separately, and he took this huge moment in his life on the road to Damascus to change his life. And because he did that and accepted it, he changed the world. There's no doubt. I mean, there's many people, if you bother to do your research, who believe that Paul furthered Christianity more than Jesus, because Jesus's mission wasn't to be a super missionary. He was a missionary, obviously, but that wasn't his mission. He had some slightly bigger things to do with the atonement and crucifixion and everything else. But Paul is the ultimate missionary. And so it's on his backs, and he's outside of the group. He's outside of the Peter group. He has a huge past reputation of being not a nice guy. And so the road to Damascus is a major upheaval in his life. And as we look at it and study what keeps him going, I mean, he is not welcome in some of the places we're going. I mean, he's almost run out of town, let's put it that way. And it'll be fascinating to explore a little bit of the culture of Corinth and Ephesus and Thessalonica, and places where he went that didn't necessarily immediately greet him. In fact, there's a great scripture that we used to use all the time on my mission, which is he's led out of Thessalonica to Berea, because those people are better prepared. It's one of these great missionary scriptures that the Lord is preparing people to hear the gospel. And Paul finds they're not really accepting it in Thessalonica. I got to go to Berea. He goes to Berea. They accept it. And what does that do? That sets an example up for Thessalonica. So then the next two scriptures later, Thessalonica starts to say, well, if they believe it, we might want to take a better look at this. Remembering Paul's physical size. Okay. If we could see Paul today, like Joseph Smith supposedly saw him, extremely short, very short, large nose, shrill voice, a very shrill voice, unless he started speaking like in an oratory situation, and then he commanded people's attention. And you see that through his mass conversions that he had. So we're going to stand on rocks that he stood on. We're going to go on the roads that he walked. And these are with other disciples from Timothy and disciples that would keep his work going in these areas and continue also for him to be an example to. At the same time, I was just mentioning before we all came online, I'm not sure there's more beautiful places you could travel in the world. Really, I just Google these cities and you're just blown away. Somebody named Kent. Do you need to say something? I didn't know. Anyway, some, as I said to Jill earlier, if I bring a camera crew, because I'm a filmmaker, there's not a bad shot. You're going to sit there with your Apple phone going, oh, that's an award-winning shot. Oh, that's an award-winning shot. And some of the sunsets, especially on the Greek Isles, if we get them. And then another huge and interesting aspect for me is for Paul to go to Athens, which is the birthplace of so much of civilization. We're going to bypass where civilization was saved, the Greek civilization, because we're going to go and visit Thermopylae, the fields of Thermopylae. And, if they hadn't defeated or pushed back the Persians, and you all know the story of the 300, the Greek part of our civilization that really flourished would have been perished any way you look at it. And so you go then to Athens, where so many great philosophies of life and still that we follow. People still follow Aristotle and Epicurean and Socrates, or my dad's favorite, Marcus Aurelius, and the Stoics, who Paul directly confronts. And he doesn't do it in a derogatory way. He realizes that much of their philosophy is based on really great principles. But what he's trying to do is like anyone in these latter days that is trying to say, turn to Christ, he is saying, hey, those are great bases, but it doesn't quite fit with what the message I'm bringing you. There is a savior. To stand there, it's going to be such an exceptional thing to go stand on Mars Hill where he taught, which is right down from where Socrates drank hemlock. You think about the great Socrates was killed by his own people, and you're going to see the Acropolis, which is above them, and then you're going to see where they voted and democracy began. These are all ancillary products to just learning what Paul taught them. But in some ways, we're going to feel them because we're going to feel what Paul was up against. These, have you ever tried to talk to someone, whether it's religion or anything, about something they think they're an expert on or have practiced their whole life, and you're bringing them a new outlook, and they're like, wait a minute. And to the Athenians' credit, if you read your scriptures, let's listen to this guy. It might be quite interesting. So I think it'll be fascinating for us to do that. We have some time to explore. You'll have time to explore on your own, and there's possibly plenty of other places that you would want to go. I'm looking at the one you just sent me. You have Mycenae. For us to stand at the Lion's Gate in Mycenae, which is one of the great photographs in anybody's life, if you could stand there, that's King Agamemnon's, and you guys know the story of Troy and everything else. That's one of the great entrances in the history of the world. So we'll stand there. We'll talk about how these particular places meant something to Paul, but also hopefully I can bring a lot of history into it. I have over here 6 different versions of the Iliad and the Odyssey, different translations. And Dave and Chris and people who have been in my class know that I often show the translation process and how it comes about. But I think that'll be part of the fun, is hopefully I can bring some literature into this, because these are all incredible places that inspired artists and writers throughout history. They've been there's something about that land that does that. And then to go to Patmos and to see, where John the Apostle was basically exiled to. And I'm trying to think what else. I don't think you guys got anything else out that I had originally seen on it, but Corinth is the most probably, and I know some of you may have been there, but Corinth is the most well preserved, I think I would probably say. So you're going to walk down streets, it'll be almost like Pompeii being the most preserved because it was preserved by volcanic ash that they're now still digging out. But this is places where you'll, with a little bit of stretch of the imagination, I have a really cool book I'm going to bring, which shows the ancient, where the pillars would have looked like and the buildings versus the ruins that it is now. And to see that, I mean, that's exciting. If we could kind of visualize them walking down through there, and a little bit like missionaries of today, you're sent to a place and you're a little out of sorts. You don't look like the rest of the people. You don't talk like the rest of the people. And who are these people? And what's this message of Christ? I mean, now the difference is that we'll study this. A lot of the people that they taught to, even though the name Jesus Christ was unfamiliar, the history and symbolism of a sacrificial God is something that was embedded in early religions, and everyone knows that. And it goes even to Viking or all sorts of religions. And so there was something that communicated with the people that Paul taught to. And at first, of course, remember, he is a Jew and he goes immediately to the synagogues. But of course, what he's preaching, which is a fulfillment of Jewish prophecy. So I think even Paul thought, well, maybe he didn't think that it would be easy, because remember, Paul himself was one of the biggest persecutors of the early Christians. So he didn't just jump in and say, oh, I get it. You fulfilled the scriptures in Isaiah and all the old prophets, and I'm going to follow along. So he fought it until, like, as you know, the great line from the Lord, why kickest thou against the pricks? Because he finally had to be converted in a very spiritual way on the road to Damascus. So I think you see a lot of patience in Paul, especially when you look at, and I wish we had further records, because I'm going to end with certain scriptures that'll say they stayed there a year and a half. Well, what did you do in a year and a half? I mean, is there volumes of scripture that we don't know about, volumes of letters that just have been lost through time? But wouldn't that be fascinating to know what has happened a year and a half you're working? I mean, any of you been on missions know you can fill a lot of journals and a lot of different evenings, preaching to people and talking to people. And Paul was on constant movement. He was one of these characters in life that you meet that seems to have boundless energy and is able to overcome real trials. I would not be singing a hymn while I've been put in stocks, in one of these cities, but has so much faith that an earthquake occurs, and then the prison guard himself is converted. It's just an amazing story that we'll discuss and get into depth, and we'll have a deeper appreciation of Paul. He said, well, I don't know why I need a deeper appreciation of Paul. I think all of us need a deeper appreciation of Paul for what he did to start this huge ball rolling of Christianity. Because remember, there was so much persecution, and that's the time to try and knock the church off course or to kill it, because it's a fledgling little tree. And even Paul, remember, Paul goes back to the apostles from all of these experiences and says, we have to preach to the Gentiles. This is not just a Jewish church. So he has this amazing, you'd call it audacity. I mean, you can imagine going up to Peter, and these are the revered apostles, and knowing his past and everything else, and saying, well, it doesn't matter because I know what I've been called to do. And I've been traveling all around. And guess what? As I travel, there's so many Gentiles that need to hear this. It's not just I go to the synagogues and preach to our fellow Jews. And so just the amount of guts, we're going to walk away from this trip going, wow, that guy, I think it'll renew all of our faith in just pushing ahead no matter how much, adversity we have. And at the same time, I mean, adversity for us, we're going to have a nice meal together every night in a hotel room with cold drinks, and everything else. So he didn't quite have it like we will, but we may have an appreciation, especially for as we walk through some of the ruins and places that he had to travel. So that's my background on Paul. I will be each day trying to give some background to where we visit and to marketplaces. And so it'll have not just, here's the religious significance of the place, but here's where the Roman army and Julius Caesar created, where are we going? One of these places I was fascinated because I was looking at it today of how many people went there. So Ephesus, I had no clue. It was visited by Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and Cleopatra. Okay, so you're talking about, Paul visited there, and that's what we're discussing. But this is obviously a huge place where, of commerce that these people visited, and in some ways instrumental in world trade. So you have all of these cultures coming together also. And so we're going to learn about that. And Ephesus actually has the largest theater in the world. You remember it had originally one of the the great seven wonders of the world. It had a gigantic statue, okay, that was 110 feet tall, that actually was over the harbor entrance. So you came in under it. Now it's gone, but when Paul arrived there, it went down in an earthquake about 200 BC. But when Paul was teaching there were ruins of the great seven wonders of the world, okay, and the god that was there, it was Helios or something. And so we'll go over all that. We'll probably stand there, look at the port. It'll be all modernized. But as I said, I have a book which will show, okay, this is what it would have looked like. And for Paul to go there has got to be it's like us, I've never been there. So it's going to catch me off guard. And it's going to be, like I mentioned, a full sensory. I think that's why Jill and Chris put on these tours, because it's not just watching a documentary like I make. Okay. I don't have smelling that comes out in the theater, okay, but this is all of the smells that you get, and the senses and the noise and all the things that go on in these foreign places, which makes travel fun, but also connects us a little bit to the past, where we start to think, oh, that's what it used to be like. That's what we just get a glimpse of what the Apostle Paul, because a lot of these places, even though they're obviously modernized, they're still places where many cultures like we are going to go and visit. There's a jumbling of people that's still going on, and they're not necessarily living in this era of Paul. But I think if we use our imagination, we'll be there. I think I'll bring some literature with it, because there's some great literature in all of these places that we'll be able to review, as well as the scriptures. So you tell me, Chris or Jill, if there's anything else I need to touch on. I can't remember if there's anything else that they maybe want to record or someone want to ask. Does anybody have any questions? Sherry, do you have any questions?
I think McKay, you've given a great overview of what they can be expecting and what's in store as far as Paul, and he's just so intricate in this whole itinerary that's set up. It's important to know we also have local guides that will be going with us, that will also be supplying some of the historical context to these areas, and cultural.
And can pronounce the words. That's and they will be able to important.
They will be able to help us with the pronunciation, because Turkey is a whole different language, right? I mean, I've been looking at some of these words, and so I know Jill has got a couple of pictures. If we thought maybe we would do a split screen on some of the places that we're going to visit, if you want to try and do that. So we do have local guides that will be with us on our tour. I'm just not sure. I can't remember if we have one that will be with us the whole time, or if we have
yeah, good question. I think we will have one for Turkey and one in Greece.
And one for Greece.
Probably
that's what I was
different
thinking.
Ones.
Yeah.
There is a flight involved. So when we leave Turkey, we will fly to Greece. So at that point, we'll probably be shifting guides that way.
We actually have two flights, because we fly from
true
down to
Thessalonica,
Kusadasi in Turkey. That first day we have a flight. I mean, after we finish Istanbul. So there's two flights that we will save a big chunk of driving, and then we don't have to sail over to Greece. We'll be taking an airplane over there. So that's important to know. So we do have local guides. either there'll be one that will be with us in Turkey and one that will be with us for Greece, and they'll be able to supply a lot more of the cultural and the historical context of the sites that we're seeing. And this is why we wanted McKay there, because we want McKay to bring that aspect of Paul, because our goal is once you finish this tour, I want you to be able to get into the New Testament and just really see these places. When you read these words that are foreign to our language, we just have a hard time embracing them. And I want you to realize, oh, this is what happened in the city in Thessaloniki, and this is what was happening in just these other sites. And the Bible, the New Testament becomes real. It becomes more valid. It's something you're more familiar with, and you can bring your experiences to what you're reading. And so that's something for me. I know that's what I have felt when I've gone to these places, and even in Israel, you go back and read the Old Testament, and you can just really glean so much more from scriptures than you ever would if you didn't ever visit these sites.
Yeah.
Jill, you've been, you're our Greek person, because you've been to Greece on the format that we had originally, but and you've also been over to Ephesus. So if you have anything you want to throw in.
Yeah. Well, you can see the slides, maybe I'll just go through them quickly, and if there's anything that pops out, that I can comment on. I mean, a lot of them are self-explanatory. Obviously, the Parthenon there on the Acropolis, and we'll spend a morning up there. This is Corinth, as McKay talked about, and it's setting there near the coast. And you'll learn, as you know, they explain there that the planet is shifting and moving. This was a port town, but the ocean is now a couple of miles away. The same with Ephesus. The road would have gone right down to a port, but it's now, inland quite a bit. There's a Greek iconic Apostle Paul.
Jill, go back to that for just a minute, because
sure.
It's interesting. We have that icon, and then we also have the description of Paul that Joseph Smith gave us.
Mm-hmm.
With the receding hair, dark hair.
Yeah.
And I don't think Joseph Smith had access to this information back
then.
No.
And this picture can't speak, but I have heard that description of his voice being quite shrill before. That is Ephesus, the amphitheater there, and that colonnade, that street would have just gone right out to a port, but you can see there now it goes out to mountains. We'll begin. Oh, go ahead.
Ephesus, did you visit the House of Mary when you were there before?
We did not. We asked about it, and our guide told us that we could go there. But we were so fascinated with Ephesus, and we kept asking her questions. And we spent all of our time at Ephesus.
Okay.
And in fact, her manager, whatever, called to make sure she was doing okay, because they couldn't imagine why she was still inside Ephesus. And she joked later, she just said, "I'm sorry." She goes, "You guys have just asked more questions than my normal guides, my normal tourists like to ask, and you guys want to know so much, so I'm happy to share it." So we didn't get to see Mary's house, but that is on the itinerary. We have more time, especially since we're not trying to get on a cruise ship. We're actually staying in Kusadasi, which is the port town there, and will give us that flexibility. Okay.
So was that the Blue Mosque?
Yeah. Let's see. Yep, that's the Blue Mosque. So we will go in Istanbul. Fantastic. And I actually have not been there either. My parents have traveled there, and I've heard amazing things and seen pictures. I was a humanities major at BYU, so I've studied the art and the architecture of all of these cities, and it will be a remarkable experience to see them. I'm excited. I probably won't be on this trip, but excited for you guys, and then for a follow-up tour when we go again. So that's a different city in Corinth. Again, another view of Corinth, what's left of their temple there. So I apologize that these jump around. Again, another street in Ephesus that is in remarkable condition, really, that Pat Street, you know, fair is still there. And they, I believe they told us that 1/10 of Ephesus has been excavated. And you'll see a large amount, but there's just acres and acres still to be discovered. There's the, you know, the most photographed building of Ephesus, the library there, which they have reconstructed. It wasn't in that good a condition, but still pretty marvelous, considering its age.
There's a whole website devoted to cats that comb that place right there. Every day I get like a new Twitter picture of the cat, some different cat,
Serious.
snuggled up in front of that place. I'm like, what, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I can't wait to meet the cat person who's taking that photo every day.
Oh yeah, I do remember seeing cats there. So
there you go. Strangest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Okay, more agora from Ephesus. So the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. This is the church turned mosque that Chris mentioned. It's fantastic how it's just, you know, added on to and enlarged, and a crazy, amazing work of architecture and then art inside. Oh, sorry, now we're jumping. That's the Blue Mosque inside. I hope we're allowed to go in there. Maybe just stand from the side. And then that's inside of the Hagia Sophia.
The only time I've ever seen it is in the movie To Russia with Love with James Bond. And I probably won't be quoting that on the trip, but you know, who knows?
Yeah. Are you recommending that guest view?
Yeah, well, not necessarily to this crowd, but what's, as you know, what's so interesting about this place is that, of course, it isn't originally a Muslim mosque. It was, you know, a Christian church. So it's had evolutions and been redecorated per se.
Yeah. And of course, the Byzantine Empire that, you know, with Emperor Justinian and all of that more recent history compared to Paul is still fascinating, as it turned from the Eastern influence to the Christianity, then of course the Turks coming in and going back to becoming Arabic or Muslim. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So Meteora in Greece, that's a monastery. We'll be visiting.
Wow, really?
Those monasteries. Yeah, we have to rock climb. Just kidding. That view, that I have a couple more pictures. Definitely, it is incredible, but that makes it a little more dramatic. Okay, Laodicea. Am I saying that right, McKay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, another area where Paul preached. This is would have been Asia Minor, Turkey. And again, Laodicea. And more. Okay, no, sorry, I'm jumping back to Greece. You can see the people, I don't know, the little tiny people look like ants or so on that rock. That is Mars Hill. So they would have been looking up at the Parthenon, looking up at the Acropolis when Paul gave his famous speech about the unknown God. And McKay will give us lots more detail about that. But that standing on that rock is truly remarkable.
Yeah, I think that'd be a highlight of the trip, to be honest with you, because it's so deep and it's such a wonderful message. And it shows how incredible Paul was to incorporate what those people were following, the philosophies of those people, and turning it into why it is not against Christianity. They needed to look at Christianity because it adds to Christianity. Just extremely not only clever, but just actually full of the spirit to do that. It's amazing. By the way, those Greek monasteries that are on those crazy hills, that was also in a James Bond movie.
Okay.
I think we've got a theme.
Only. So this is
It's a
called
Bond girl.
Yes,
Yeah.
the subtitle for the tour. It's the James Bond tour. It's really weird how him and Paul somehow, I don't get it, but it's working out that way.
Well, you know, James, that's an apostle. I mean,
There
he's
you go. Yes, a little bit different code of ethics than
Yeah, a little bit different mission.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's another view of the Meteora.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, and Miletus.
Wow, that's a cool shot.
Yeah. Another place that Paul taught. I have in Turkey.
Oh, Miletus. Okay.
Miletus, okay. Yeah, Miletus. I left out the L on my picture. Oh, there we go. Again, Miletus.
Hmm.
And then this is the Lion's Gate that McKay talked about in Mycenae. Predating Paul, but much, much older, but yeah.
This is the Iliad. This is King Agamemnon. This is ancient Greek stuff.
These are the rocks that the Cyclops had to move because they're so large. A human couldn't have done it. And you can't tell from that picture, but they are, you know, several tons. So this is Pamukay, not Pamukali.
Pamukay.
Pamukay.
Yeah, Pamukay. I looked it up. Pamukay. Pamukay.
And it's not snow, and it's not even salt. It is sulfur. Well, I guess it is salt. They're hot springs. And
It's calcium, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
calcium. Yeah. So they're beautiful, and they're similar to the ones at Mammoth and Hot Spring in Yellowstone, but in Yellowstone you can't touch them, right? They're very caustic and acidic. But these people will actually bathe in. I don't have any pictures of people in them, but it's a remarkable sight. So it will be.
It said it's considered the 8th wonder of the world.
Oh, really?
The water has healing.
Yeah.
So are we going to have time to bathe?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I understand, I will get more specifics on that when we get closer, but yes.
There you go. I'll bring my Speedo. We'll have a great lesson there. That's
Yeah.
cool.
That's a tiny picture of Philippi. I think I have a bigger one. Oh, nope, jumping to Thessalonica. Triumphant arch there. So where Paul preached to the Thessalonians. And I think that's it. Yeah, so.
I'm quite excited to go to Thessalonica because in one of the scriptures, it actually mentions how Satan is trying to stop Paul from going there.
Wow.
And so there's something about that place. I just want to get a great feel for it. And other missionaries went there. Timothy and Silas stayed there. And you know, I don't know if you know, but Paul was there for nearly 18 months. So he had an 18-month mission there. So there's something very powerful and real there that hopefully we can feel when we go there.
Well, this has been a good overview. I know that the next question that I think most people will have is the air travel and what we're looking at with group flights, that sort of thing. So Jill, with right now, we don't have, we had a window for a group flight, but we didn't have enough people that had signed up, meaning signed up, put in a deposit. we've got quite a few now. We have, I think, around 13. or so.
I think we have, no, a few more than that, almost to 20.
Oh, are we? Okay. Yeah, when we had the deadline for the airfare to get the group flight, we had to have a few more people at that time. So what we'll do is we'll figure out, we'll be giving you flight suggestions. And we do have an agent that works with us to help people book their flights, but we'll give you an arrival time on the front end of when to be arriving in Istanbul.
Yeah, we'll get that. And I don't have that actual flight that we were likely going to be using right in front of me, but we'll send those specifics out. And then if you are coming from Salt Lake and you like to travel with us, we recommend traveling with us. No, don't have to, but if you'd like to, it would just be a matter of calling Craig or letting me know. And when we, yeah, and we'll help you take care of that.
Cool.
Okay,
Well, do
so
you
are there any
want-
questions any of you
Well,
have?
do you want to
that-
say anything about safety? Because I think that's, everybody's a little concerned, like not only just COVID, but also being in a foreign country. And you mentioned it earlier, Jill, at the beginning, that
Yeah.
you had no trouble going to Egypt and other pretty exotic places. But
Yeah, there are travel advisories. The government puts out, their a little updates. I think they grade them as yellow, green, red, orange and red or something, or level 3, level 4 or something like that. So I think Turkey and even Greece might be level 3. And we travel, like I said, to Egypt and Jordan. Those are both level 3. Even the Dominican Republic we travel to is also at that risk. So you have to travel smart, making sure that you're with the group, making sure that we're, in the places with the guide and not wandering off by yourself or at night going off into the big cities. If they're, like Istanbul, I don't think we'll have a problem in Thessalonica or Philippi. Those places should be just fine. We walked around to in the evenings, not a problem. Those border areas where those countries border on, I think is it Russia or Kazakhstan?
Yeah,
I'm not sure where exactly Turkey borders, but those areas are a problem, and those are not the areas that we're going into. Chris, what else?
Right, and that's why when you have local guides, they're always paying attention and then are aware of what are problem areas in their country. And again, they would never take us into an area that would be unsafe. I mean, if something happened, they wouldn't take us into those areas. And so a lot of times when people are traveling, they do travel alone. And so the United States, they do put out travel advisories, but we're not going, we're not wandering into Turkey by ourselves and trying to figure things out. We're actually going with a guide with a local company there, and they're taking people in there all the time. And so we should not have any problems.
Yeah, they're, like as Chris said, their utmost, concern is that we are safe. The Lutfi, who helps us in Greece and Turkey, his father coordinated the tours for BYU Travel for, several decades back when BYU did their educational travel tour. So he's very familiar with LDS groups, and so excited for us to come over to his country and helping coordinate. They will likely send a tour manager as well as a guide to just help us out to make sure that we are safe and looked out for.
well, cool. I think the last thing I'd say, because you're recording this, right?
Yeah.
Is if you have friends or family that might be interested, they can just get on the site and watch this. I know I have quite a bit of family that are looking to come on this, but they need to watch it and have basic questions too. And then, because people I haven't even thought of, like I was telling Jill beforehand, a guy's one of my film partners for 5 years of my life, and then we haven't done anything together. We did a television, or you guys might have heard of a documentary called The Abolitionists. So we edited and put that together, and all of a sudden I was playing squash with him, and I told him about this. He went home, got on the site, Legacy Tour site, called me up and said, "Hey man, I want to come. Will you buy me a ticket and I'll film it?" And I'm like, "Well, let me think about that." But yeah, and Dave's laughing. He knows what it's like. But so I said, but be honest with you, he said, I'd like to bring my wife. So suddenly he started thinking, outside the box of how many people could I bring. And so I think if you have someone who might be interested, you never know. I would never thought of him necessarily going on this trip, but I think he'll probably end up coming, and you'll have to, he's got his own little drone, and we get some great shots for all of us to watch. But
Great memories.
I'll probably end up getting him a ticket just because it'll probably be worth it. So there might be someone you say, hey, they might want to come along, and I'll help them get the price or whatever, and get them over there, or maybe air miles to help them over there, whatever it is. So I would encourage people to do that if they're listening.
I also want to let our thing that will listen later is we're going the early part of April, and actually it's a really great time. That part of the world can get really warm and uncomfortable and humid. Getting into May, June, and July, I've had friends that have traveled over there, and very, very hot and very humid. And so with us going in April, we're going to have more. It'll be warm, especially comparative to what we're feeling right now. But, if you can have temperatures in the 70s, a lot more pleasant for touring than it is when it gets super hot and humid. And so I'm actually looking forward to a really nice break and a place to go where you can enjoy a little bit of warmth. And so that's one aspect of it. And we also are going a little bit earlier. It's pre-tour season, and we should have a less amount of people touring at the same time when you go in this time of year.
And I want to mention too, and we do have some time for questions, but we always do a pre-tour meeting. We've done it by Zoom. We have done them in person, but we also have a several pages document that we send out. So we'll cover things like clothing and temperature and food, food, money, shopping, electrical outlets, some of those more nitty-gritty questions that you will have if you are going on the tour. So that, I don't know that we'll cover all of that tonight, but that will be covered. We will address those as we get closer.
So the most important thing right now is if this is something you are considering and you're wanting to do, the best thing to do is go to Legacy Tours and Travel and pull up the Apostle Paul tour, which is Greece and Turkey, and go ahead and get your reservation, filling out information about you and your travel and your passport, and then putting down a $300 deposit. Our payment wouldn't be due until I believe it's 45 days out.
45 days, so that's going to be the middle of March? No,
it's going to
be the middle of February. Yeah, it's coming right up.
Yeah. Deposit now, and then payment would be next month.
Yep.
So otherwise, you'll just want to go to the website and get yourself registered, get your deposit paid, and then you'll be ready to roll when we get airfare information out and payment.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We look forward to taking you with us to Greece in April and Turkey, and we know you're going to love this experience.
Thank you.
And thanks, McKay, for
You bet.
us.